2003 Ford F350 Super Duty. Gonna do front brake pads and rotors. Hopefully I won't need calipers. I won't find it out till I get them apart. What you need to do is jack it up and support it and remove your front tires. Lug nuts are 21 millimeter. And then you want to remove your caliper and your bracket at the same time. But what you can do is remove the two caliper bolts. These are 17 millimeter. Sometimes they're 5/8 or a 16, but these are a 17. So you want to remove these two caliper bolts, one here and one there. You look like that, okay? And then you want to loosen up your top caliper bracket bolt. That's a 21 millimeter right here. And you want to remove the bottom one. It's down here. Looks like that, 21 millimeter. So now you're ready to remove it. But first what you want to do is remove your ABS hose line, electrical wire hose line from the brake hose. Hold on with those fasteners, you just pull them out, get it loose. Get yourself a little J hook to hang your caliper on if you need to. Most of the time I'll just set it on the spring, but I got it just in case. So next we're going to do is remove the upper bolt, and then we'll pry off our caliper bracket assembly together. Reason why I don't pull the caliper off right now first, because the brake pads have little tits on the back of them, and when you pry off the caliper, it might chip your pistons, or if they're metal pistons, it makes them harder to come off. Otherwise you'll have to pry on them like this and push the pistons back in by prying on the caliper. You know, pushing the caliper this way and it's pushing against the pistons. But sometimes it's tough. So, but then I'll take it off as a unit. And then when I get the both pieces off, I'll separate them. And then I'll hang my caliper off to the side. And I'll have this and put this on the floor, the caliper bracket, okay? Okay, there's the caliper bracket, and there's the caliper, and here's the brake pad. Those are the tits I was talking about. And here we are. And this was metal to metal, so it baked my caliper, it baked my boots, so they're like totally hard and they're cracking. So these might have a hard time pushing in, but anyway. Needs to be replaced. This is a welding truck, so it weighs a lot. So this is something you don't want to mess with. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the calipers, okay? Now on this particular model, I need to take the rotors off and I need to measure them to make sure I get the right size. It starts off with, in the parts book is in millimeters, so then I have to measure the diameter of them with a tape measure and then convert it to millimeters, okay? If your rotor is bonded on here, you might have some fasteners on it. Remove the fasteners that are on the studs. And if it's still bonded onto the hub, spray some penetrant on it, let it soak in. And if you're going to replace the rotors, which you should, you can smack them with a hammer all the way around. And the vibration will loosen them up. And then if they're still stuck on there, you can hit this back side of it with a hammer to get them off, okay? Alright, so I'm going to take apart my other side and I'm going to go ahead and get my parts going. If you're going to replace your calipers, make sure you find out if it's got metal or plastic pistons. Get a magnet, see if it sticks on it. If it sticks on it, then it's metal pistons, okay? I'm only doing one side at a time because you have to turn the wheel to the right or the left to get to the bolts, and I don't want to keep putting it back and forth and aerating the brake power steering fluid. Okay, so just do one side at a time, and then also measure your rotor, see which one you got. This one's 13 inches. That's the 331 millimeter. So now I'm gonna go get my parts. Okay, you got all your parts. Make sure your rotors match your old ones, and also your brake pads match. All right, and now you got your hub bearing. You need to have this surface nice and clean. Cannot have no rust on it, so if it's got any rust on it, sand it down, make it nice and clean surface. Then after you get a nice and clean surface, you go ahead and put some anti-seize on it, a light film of anti-seize all the way around, then you can put your rotor on. But before you put your rotor on, you want to clean your rotors with some soap and water, or some glass cleaner, or even some brake clean on a rag. But do not put any brake clean on your brake pads, all right? And so once you got the rotor on there, then you can go ahead and work on your caliper. But in the meantime, right now, before you put your rotor on there, what you want to do is you want to get your new caliper, if you got a new caliper or an old caliper. All right, if you got new calipers, what you need to do is separate them, caliper from the backing plate. And what you want to do is you want to take your slide pins out and put some little bit more Seal Glide on the pins. Do not pack the bracket with Seal Glide. You won't compress the pins in there. And also make sure that your boots are on there installed properly, that they actually stay on the little lips, okay? And also I put some paint on where my hardware goes for my clips, you know. Put some extra paint on there because I don't know how much paint's on here. And also if you're using the original calipers and brackets, you want to clean that surface up, get it nice and shiny. Try not to remove any metal, but clean it up, get all that rust out of there, and paint them. And while that's drying, then you can go ahead and put your rotor on and then go from there. All right, you got your rotor on. You can put a lug nut on there, run it all the way down, or you can just use a pair of vice grips, put them on there lightly just to hold it from moving around, okay? After you do that, then you can get your bracket, you can put your clips in there, your hardware. Make sure you put them in there properly, okay? Make sure they're bottomed out, and make sure that they clip in and they stay in, okay? So now you can mount this and snug up your bolts. All right, you got your caliper bracket mounted. Get your bolts snugged up. Now you need to torque them to 165 foot-pounds. Those big ones, okay? After you do that, then you need to put your brake pads in. Put your rear brake pad in. You got to push them in at an angle, and then you twist them like that. Okay, because what you want to do is you're pushing these little springs in at the same time. Boom. And there they go. All right. Then you got these little extra springs that help push the pads apart. And you put them into the holes like that. And then you got to hold on to it at the same time and do the other side. And then get your other hand up in there and grab your caliper and put your caliper on, okay? Remember these two of these, one on top and one on the bottom, okay? And go in them holes in there, all right? So I gotta have my hands, so I'll be back. Okay, you hold on to the pads, use your right other arm, put the caliper on, okay? Once you got the caliper on, make sure that your bleeder is on the top, not the bottom, okay? So this is the left side, driver's side, the bleeder's on the top, all right? Get your bolts in there, get them started, a couple threads, and then you want to look at your slide pins. They got flats on them. The flats go on the flat part of the caliper like that. and make sure that they go in there when you tighten them up, okay? Because you don't want to tighten them up with them off to the side, and then you end up having a loose caliper going down the road, okay? Same thing at the bottom. See how that one's looking? So you need to line that one up, make it look like that, okay? And then you need to tighten those up to 55 foot-pounds. Or was it 75? Let me see, I don't remember. It's 55 foot-pounds, yeah. It's working at 55. Make sure when you snug them up, make sure they look good, okay? If they don't look like that, then you gotta loosen them back up. Okay, now if they're in there, you got them torqued to 55 foot-pounds, then you need to go to your old caliper and you need to remove your brake line off of the old caliper. Okay. Here's the banjo bolt, okay? And what you need to do is get yourself a pincher. I always use a small pair of needle nose loosely on there just so it restricts the flow of the brake fluid. Okay, here's your caliper brake line, and it's a size 14. It has 2 copper washers, one on each side of the block of the line. Okay, so this is a 14 millimeter, so you want to remove that. And then you want to save these in case you didn't get new ones, okay? Most calipers, remans come with new ones. So now you want to clean this surface up and this surface up. You want to get all that crud off of there, make it decent, okay? Because you don't want that crud holding it up a little bit and giving you a bad seal, okay? Okay, you got your block nice and clean. Put your banjo bolt in there with a new washer and a new washer down below. See if you can see it in there. There it is, it's in there, see it? Alright, see how this line flops around? What you want to do is you want to get it over here and push it down so it goes into that slot, okay? And you want to make sure that your line is a nice line, not whoop, twisted, and you have to force this to be lined up. I mean, yeah, I gotta force it a little bit because it's turned all the way, but so now all you gotta do is snug this up, straighten your line out, make sure it's centered in there, snug it up, and then you want to tighten it to 40 foot-pounds, okay? Okay, you got your banjo bolt torqued, and you want to go ahead and clip in your anti-lock sensor wire into the little brackets, okay? These things should slide, so slide this one up to get that little gap out of there. All right, so I got that in there. Now next I need to do is remove my bleeder. I'll take my bleeder out, I'll put some anti-seize back on it, and then I'll screw it back in, and I'll remove my vice grips, and then I'll bleed my brakes now. Gravity bleed, okay? You can see the air bubbles coming up. I can see it get better. See the bubble coming? See them trickling right there? When you don't see any more bubbles, and then it's when you can tighten up the bleeder, okay? So it's dripping pretty good. So I'll snug it up. And then I'll go underneath the hood and open up my master cylinder and top off my fluid, okay? Next, you go to the other side and you do the other side exactly the same way, all right? And then what you want to do after you get done gravity bleeding it, what you need to do is go inside the vehicle, start it up, push your pedal to the floor a couple times, see how the pedal is, make sure it's firm, shut it off, go back to your reservoir, top it off, come back down here and bleed it again on both sides, okay? Make sure there's no air in there. And then what you can do is take a hammer and tap on the side of the caliper. That what it does is vibrates it a little bit and it helps break away the little air bubbles that are trapped inside there. And make sure that you have no more air bubbles coming out of your bleeder, and that will be it, okay? And then make sure you double check your fluid level and put your reservoir cap back on. And then now you're ready to put your tires on. Put your tires on, snug them up, and then tighten them up at a crisscross pattern at 140 foot-pounds. And then you can lower down and, again, make sure you got a good firm pedal before you put it in drive or reverse, because otherwise you won't have brakes, okay? And that's how you do your front brake pads, rotors, and calipers, all right? If I helped you with this video, that's awesome. Hopefully you can help me out by subscribing, and you already have. All right, thank you. All right, good luck.